Hello, my dear friend. Today I will tell you a story about unprecedented human cruelty and human madness. I will tell you a story about the Charles Manson cult. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel and like this video. We are starting. Members of the destructive organization killed more than 10 people on Charles Manson's orders. The most resonant was the brutal murder of Roman Polanski's pregnant wife Sharon Tate. The criminals were not familiar with the actress, so what motives prompted them to commit the crime? Charles Manson grew up in a dysfunctional family and was a thief from a young age. The guy was arrested for stealing cars and working as a pimp, but how did he come to create the family, commune, each of whose members was ready to kill on his orders? The sect was born during the heyday of the hippie movement, and at first Manson's followers were no different from the children of the sun, promiscuous sex, drugs, rock and roll. All these points were observed. However, the residents of the Spahn ranch did not stop at selling illegal substances and stealing. Charles acted as a preacher and seriously expected an interracial war, the anthem of which was the Beatles' song Helter Skelter. It seemed, what does the popular British group have to do with it? It's just that the leader of the commune interpreted the line of the song, "When I go down, I'll go up the hill again. There I'll stop, turn around and roll again," as the end of the world, when African Americans will exterminate all whites, except for members of the family. This is where Charlie Manson, a new messiah for the survivors, will enter the arena. But, Helter Skelter, was in no hurry to attack, and the man decided to set an example for the people by organizing a series of murders with the aim of inciting conflict. For his actions, he was sentenced to death, which was eventually commuted to life imprisonment. On November 19, 2017, Charles died in prison at the age of 83, but his name continues to pop up in books and films. So, last summer Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was released, where the tragic story of the murder of pregnant Sharon Tate by the family found an alternative ending. The actress was not attacked, and the members of the commune were destroyed. Why, half a century after a series of brutal crimes, does Manson remain part of popular culture and even has the unofficial title of the most famous maniac in the world? Kathleen Maddox gave birth to her son Charlie when she was barely 16. While pregnant, the girl married dry cleaner William Manson, who gave the child his last name. But who was Charles's biological father is a mystery, because Kathleen was dating 3 men at almost the same time. The marriage fell apart after 3 years. The young mother was engaged in prostitution, drank, and was constantly absent from home. Once, in the midst of one of the parties, Maddox tried to rob an acquaintance, for which she received a 5-year prison sentence. Her heir was sent to his aunt and uncle in McMackin, West Virginia. 3 years later, his mother was released early, and Manson later called meeting her after a long separation his happiest childhood memory. However, their life together can hardly be called prosperous. At first, the mother and son settled in Charleston, then moved to Indianapolis. Here, the teenager began to skip classes and steal, while Kathleen continued to abuse alcohol. She tried to place 13-year-old Charles in a foster family, and when she did not find a suitable one, she sent him to the Catholic school for boys, Gibbled. Several times, Manson ran away from the boarding school, and realizing that his mother did not need him, he eventually rented a separate room in Indianapolis and continued to steal. When he was caught for the first time, the judge showed sympathy and sent the teenager to a correctional facility. It had no effect. 4 days later he slipped away with fellow sufferer Blackie Nielsen, stole weapons, robbed stores and casinos. Caught red-handed, Charlie was sent to the Indiana School for Boys, where, according to him, he was humiliated and raped. Several years passed, and Charlie was already called an aggressive antisocial teenager. In the correctional camp, he attacked an inmate with a razor and raped him. Manson was transferred from one institution to another until he stopped showing aggression. Suddenly turning into an exemplary guy, the pretender Charlie was able to return to his aunt in McMurray. At 20, Charles married waitress Rosalie Willis and moved with her to California. He earned money by stealing cars, so he was soon arrested. Rosalie was pregnant, and this mitigating circumstance could have made the sentence suspended if Manson had shown up for the hearing. However, Charlie did not show up for court and received 3 years in prison. After the birth of Charlie Miles Manson Jr., his wife fled the city. Marrying a prostitute, Candy, getting a suspended sentence for theft, working as a pimp, Manson had no intention of becoming a respectable citizen. When his second wife gave birth to their son Charlie Luther, the criminal was in prison. It is not surprising that this marriage quickly fell apart. By the time he was released, the 32-year-old man had already spent half his life behind bars. The only positive experience was that he learned to play the guitar in prison. At that time, those around him seriously thought that Charles Manson would become famous as a great musician.